Carl, you won the Premiership with Exeter back in 2017. This year, Exeter have done the double. Fantastic achievement. What do you put that down to?
It's got to be a bit of everything, but I mean, there's got to be some key points in there. Obviously, since they've come back from lockdown, so to speak, they've had the same challenges a lot of businesses and a lot of companies would, but they gelled as a team straight away. Even though they only would have had a couple of months off, same as the rest of us, they didn't come back in and treat it as a new season. Perhaps they did, but whatever they did as a group, and they made that decision really early, I think. And I think their early results out of lockdown and then all the way up to the end, and they just stuck together as a group. We all remember shouting at the telly nights that this B team, as you want to call it, went away to Northampton and Bristol, and they came home with those victories. And yeah, to think that isn't a squad effort, what they've managed to achieve, is no way. They got to a point where they were five weeks out from the playoffs, top of the league, and those two victories were a big part of that, which allowed them to then rest players, going into the really big games at the end. So huge factor in the teamwork that they all had to dig deep and do it together, yeah.
And they haven't really lost that team ethic right from when the club got promoted from the Championship back in 2010, have they?
No, definitely. There's a lovely couple of pictures going around now, isn't there, about how it's going versus how it is now. Got I think Hayden Thomas and Gareth Steenson hugging with the Championship trophy 10 years ago in Bristol, and now you've got boys holding the double, two trophies in the Twickenham Stadium, and that is how they've kept hold of that throughout 10 years. We've said many times on many talks, it is no accident. You can sign great players, should I say, all over the world and bring them in, and you cannot have a successful dynasty like they're starting to have now. They're bringing in guys that want to work hard. They're bringing in guys that will put the extra work in and have something to prove. Some players have perhaps been given a second chance at Exeter, or they've come in as fantastic players already, but they still haven't quite. Stuart Hogg, for instance, one of the best players in the world, but hadn't actually tasted the success that he has this season because he came in with something to prove and something to do. And then you look at the leadership of the team in Jack Yendall, club captain, Joe Simmons, 23-year-old bloke, just won the double with his local club pretty much. But these guys had something to prove. I don't think there's another club in the planet, let alone England, that would have given Joe Simmons the captaincy, not because he isn't a good captain, but because not a lot of clubs would have had the faith that they chose to give him, and he delivered. Not just with his ability to play, but ability to lead, and he's been those two people, Jack and Joe, have been a huge factor in why they've had that success this year and the last couple.
Yeah, and the whole leadership of the club, just that striving for success. But they never seem to rest on their laurels, do they? I remember Rob Baxter saying back in 2017, just after winning the Premiership, then that part of the development of the club was to do better in Europe. It probably took a little bit longer, but that goal has now been achieved. And you must have recognised that in your time when you were playing there, how incrementally, through that good leadership and focus and teamwork, the club moved forward every year, didn't it?
Yeah, I think the club has overachieved every single year, bar maybe one or two in the last decade, even including their first year in the Premiership. They got promoted and they had a goal to stay in the Premiership, and they ended up winning way more games than they expected. Then the following year, they're within touching distance of Europe, and then they're into Europe, and that's the year I arrived. And we didn't do very well in Europe. We had an all right season, finished seventh. No one was angry at us. We were still sort of praised for being Exeter and everyone's second favourite side, but that was never enough. To the point where we had to start doing better in Europe. We had to get to the playoffs, and we got to the playoffs, and then we got to the final, and we lost the final, but that wasn't enough. And at that point then, fan or any fan in the country was still calling this the Cinderella story at that point, losing the final, And then the year after, it was a case of win it, and then we won it. And then what was next? It was, we have to win Europe and the Premiership again, and we didn't quite do it. It'll only get to the point now, really, I think, where teams and people, fans will start shining the spotlight on Exeter's success and saying, if they lose a game, that's unlike them. Whereas up to this point, it's only been them they've been competing with. I think their desperation to get better and Rob's desperation to drive forward has been the factor behind them, with many others as well. But yeah, going into this year, it would be so easy to rest on the laurels of we've just done the double, we don't win the Premiership this year, we don't win the European Championship this year. No one's going to be surprised. They will have that conversation quite soon, actually, because of the amount of time they've got to get back in. It'll be a conversation they're having within weeks. About how they're going to do it again.
It's an interesting story, and it's one that I'm really enjoying the way that we're putting this content together to take to businesses to demonstrate how a business can replicate what the Exeter Chiefs have done by going from Championship to double winning side through getting those fundamentals right. So, Carl, thanks very much for your time. Look forward to presenting with you at various businesses over the Southwest soon.
Pleasure, Tim.